Hey, what's happening, guys? Welcome back to Rule of Two Review, and today I want to talk about remasters and if they're going to belong on the Nintendo NX. So a pretty straightforward idea. We know that remasters have been hugely important for the gaming industry the last couple of years, especially with the advent mostly of the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Also, the PC wrapped up there in a little bit, but really 2/3 of the console market these last couple of years have really relied on remasters, HD remasters, quote unquote, if you want to call it, which of course is ironic, and I think we all know why. Remasters, this conversation's a little bit tricky because I think it really just depends on what side of the remaster conversation you come down on. Some people love them, some people hate them, some people see them as a smart business practice, some people see them as a really down and dirty kind of business practice and something that they don't really like and is maybe gouging the consumer and gamers. And there's definitely an argument for both. So in order for me to discuss how remasters might be important or might not be important for the NX once the Nintendo finally reveals that, I need to let you guys know that I don't really mind remasters ultimately as a whole. I think that they can be fine. But there are definitely the bad examples of when remasters are used the wrong way. So what I mean by that are the obvious examples of something like a Tomb Raider or a Last of Us, where those games were released literally the year after their previous gen counterparts with little to no upgrades. I mean, the PS4 version of Tomb Raider I know had 60 frames per second, which is nice for sure. But does that really warrant doing what they did as far as releasing a whole brand new $50, $60 experience? Same with The Last of Us, one of my all-time favorite games, the PlayStation 3 version. The very next year, the PlayStation 4 comes out, and they have to remaster that version. So all of a sudden, you have a game that looks marginally better, just re-released on another platform because they didn't make these systems backwards compatible. That's probably the number one problem I have as far as the negative side of remasters, is that what happened specifically with the Xbox and with the PlayStation is that these consoles were purposefully, I believe, made not backwards compatible so that they could take advantage of the remaster market and not fill out their libraries with a lot of brand new content and a lot of exclusive content, at least for the first year or two. And again, I say this as a fan of those consoles. They used them to fill out their libraries because they weren't creating new content. They knew that the systems probably were pushed out a little bit too early, so they didn't have a lot of games ready. And it's like, hey, if we also don't make these backwards compatible, people have to either buy our Xbox 360s and PlayStation 3s to play these games, or they have to buy these brand new remastered versions of the games that we bring out on the current consoles. And there's a very small investment. It probably doesn't cost a lot of money for these companies to remake these games on current gen technology. Oh my gosh, sorry guys. It doesn't cost them probably a lot to do that. And then bam, they win. They put very little effort and money into it, and these games come out and people are buying them like crazy, and it doesn't really seem fair, and I've run into a lot of scenarios. There's so many games right now I'd like to go back and play that I wish I still had my 360 or my PS3 for, and it's like, gosh, I wish I could play this game or that game. But nope, I can't just buy those games and play them on my Xbox One or PlayStation 4. I have to either go and buy a 360 or PS3 again, or I'd have to just hope beyond hope that they make a remaster. And on the occasion that they've made remasters, I've picked up one or two for sure. But I kind of wish it wasn't that way. I just feel like it's something that shouldn't have happened. But if we step aside from that, there is a good side to remasters, and that is that more people get to play games. It does take games that are sometimes very well beloved, some games that I certainly have enjoyed, and it makes them available to a wider audience, and it makes it easier for people to play them again without having to buy previous technology. I mean, for example, there's a remaster coming out in a couple of months that I'm extremely excited for, and that is the BioShock Collection Remaster. That's an example of something that I'm super, super into. I love those games. That's a great value. So that's a little bit different than some of the other examples that it's like, a whole $60 purchase, $60 package for just one game. They're taking all three of those amazing, priceless masterpiece games. Even BioShock 2. I really like BioShock 2. They're taking those games and they're re-releasing them with some sort of modern upgrades, and they're going to be available to play again on the current technology, and I don't have to go buy a 360 or PS3. So excited for that because I've actually been craving the BioShock games lately anyway. Of course, I need to segue this back to Nintendo. We know that on the Wii U, there's been two remaster scenarios that we've dealt with. Both Zelda games, The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, and you know what? Those were great remasters. Granted, here's the sticky scenario with remasters, and I'm glad I didn't forget to bring this up. Part of the problem on the negative side of remasters, of course, is bringing games that are just last year's games or last generation's games on the PS3 and 360 that were already HD that get such a minor bump in visual quality and in content on these newer versions that it's really not worth the value, and it's totally screwing consumers over, I think, who want to play those games. But there is an area for there is a side to remasters, an arena within which remasters can actually be okay and actually great and beneficial. And Nintendo's are perfect examples, The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, because those are games that are very old. When a game is extremely old and being remastered, I think that that's wonderful because you're making it available to a whole new audience. The Wind Waker is the most perfect example of this because that game, when it came out, 2013, 2014, was either 10 or 11, 12 years old at the time that it released on the Wii U. Oh my God, there are gamers so young right now that they didn't even know what the GameCube was. They didn't even play on the GameCube when they were kids. They never would have had a chance to play this amazing game. And here we go. Let's bring it out on our new technology on the Wii U. And they remastered it. They made it look better. They made it work with the gamepad controller. It was so fantastic, not to mention the fact that that game, as well as Twilight Princess, were SD, standard definition. These are games that actually benefit and make use of HD graphics. When you talk about HD remaster for something like Last of Us or Tomb Raider, that's like insulting because, like I said, those games were already HD. But The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on their, more outdated, older technology that was standard definition, those games actually require a visual upgrade. Those games actually are taking advantage of the new consoles and the new power, and they're actually upgrading from standard definition to high definition. That is the definition of why you would do a remaster, and those are examples of games that take advantage. And there are other ones that have existed for sure, on all the systems, but these are just the most accurate and recent examples, and they tie us back into Nintendo. So we know that Nintendo has the NX coming out purportedly in March. I'm starting to get the feeling, you guys, that it may actually get delayed beyond March, and I know none of us want to hear that or think about it. I certainly hope it's not true, but I just have this weird feeling that it may happen. So if it does happen, don't blame me. I just brought it up. I'm not the one who would actually be doing it. But right now it's set to come out in March. And, there's a high possibility that Nintendo may be considering remasters or ports of their current Wii U generation games for that system. And the question is, does that make sense? Would that be considered okay? Is that something that Nintendo should do? And there's definitely an argument for both. But I'm going to side on the side of no. I don't really want them to do that. The best thing that they could do is make the system backwards compatible so that it's not an issue. And there is a possibility that Nintendo does that because they're so good about doing that. But we know that there's a lot of talk that based on the hardware, the technology, the architecture of the machine, and if it's using cartridges or something different than DVD, Blu-ray games, disc games, then all of a sudden you can't make it backwards compatible. So there's also a good chance that it won't be backwards compatible for myriad different reasons. If that's the case, then I could see a couple of games making sense to bring to the NX and make an NX version of Mario Kart or Smash Brothers. Everyone brings up Smash Brothers, maybe Splatoon, things like that, Mario 3D World. I don't know, a couple of their games. It would certainly be neat. I'd love to have more people who might pick up an NX be able to play games like Wonderful 101 or Bayonetta 2 or Pikmin 3 and all these other things that I think are fantastic, Zombie U. But I don't really think that it's the right thing to do. Like I said, there is an absolute advantage to certain games getting remasters, and I support them. I have purchased some of them in the past. Like I said, I actually have the Gears of War remaster, for example, on the Xbox One, and I think that's great, even though it's, a last generation game. The Halo Master Chief Collection, another example, because there's such a value there, and two of those games were on a standard definition console, so that made sense. So while there is an arena where it's okay to do some remasters, ultimately I think it's going to set the wrong precedents. And there's enough of a shady business practice there and enough of a gray area where it doesn't feel comfortable for a lot of consumers and for myself. I don't necessarily want Nintendo to get wrapped up in that. So that's the really tricky thing. Is there are some games that are worthy of Nintendo bringing over and, up-resing, making the graphics look better, making, improving the online networks for things like Smash and Mario Kart and things like that, and bringing these games to a new audience. There's a huge advantage there, guys. But I just don't really want to see it. Now, if they continue to do remasters of some of their older games from the Wii and GameCube generation or even N64, that's a different story. And I would love it if that became part of a business model Nintendo used with the NX. But taking Wii U games that are already HD, games that already in so many cases look absolutely fantastic. I think Bayonetta 2 and Mario Kart and Smash look better than a lot of games available even on the PS4 and Xbox One. As Pikmin 3, like I said, Pikmin 3 is probably the best looking game I think I've seen on the Wii U personally. So they're, taking those games and doing NX ports and remasters just doesn't make sense, and I think it's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths. I want Nintendo to focus on new content. If they're going to do some remaster things and virtual console things where they upgrade the visuals of certain games, then do it with older games. Obviously, the Wii and GameCube era stuff is working fantastically. There's so much to take advantage of. Give us like an HD, an upgraded, up-res version of like Eternal Darkness on the GameCube or something fantastic like that. That's the kind of stuff that we want, and that's the kind of stuff that warrants an HD remaster. When it comes to the NX and ports and remasters, I just don't think it's going to be very comfortable. And like I said, it's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths. The first year, here's what I'm going to leave this video on. If in the first year of the NX, a small handful of remasters comes out, and let's say they're even all Wii U games. I would be sad if they were all Wii U games. But let's say Bayonetta and Smash Brothers and, Pikmin, a game I really want. And Pikmin 3 and Mario 3D World. Let's say those 4 games all get remastered in the first year of the NX. If there's a solid launch lineup, if one or none of those games come out at launch and they wait a couple of months, and if there's a solid launch lineup outside of that, and there's a consistent stream of a couple of brand new games, either from Nintendo or multi-platform ports from the competition's boxes that are coming out, at relevant release dates too. If that happens, I will be okay in the first year with a small peppering of remasters from the Wii U generation. I really will be, especially if the value is there, Nintendo sells them for the right price, and they add enough stuff to make it worth it, which, to be fair, so far Nintendo's been very good at. But there's too much of a bad precedent set by the weirdness and the lameness of the Xbox One and PS4's library right out of the gate, where they had to rely on those for the first 2 years, which really sucks. I don't want them doing the same thing, and like I said, it's going to look bad for Nintendo. Right now, Nintendo has been able to save face on the DLC game and the Season Pass game, and they've been able to save face on the remaster game, and I think that that's important. I think it's important for them to maintain that through the launch of the NX and beyond. I think they're going to maintain it, but there's a possibility they slip in and maybe they do a little bit. They do some of these remaster things and maybe do more than is really going to be comfortable, and I just don't even know, you guys. So I'm going to leave it to you. What do you think about this? Does it make sense for Nintendo to do a lot of remasters, of Wii U games for the NX? Do you not want them to do it because you hate the idea outright? Like I said, it's a huge gray area. A lot of good to the idea and a lot of bad to the idea. So I want to hear what you guys think. You've heard my thoughts. Very curious stuff. Share your thoughts about it below. Like I said, thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I'll catch you guys next time on another video.